A cop's worst nightmare is arresting the wrong person, and Officer Marcus Reed had just made the biggest mistake of his career. The sun hung high in the sky, casting its relentless heat onto the peaceful streets of Greenfield, a pristine neighborhood in Ohio. The kind of place where sidewalks were bordered by neatly trimmed hedges, morning joggers moved in sync, and police patrols felt more like a formality than a necessity. Officer Marcus Reed cruised slowly down the road, one hand on the steering wheel, the other resting lazily on the radio. 22 years on the force, and he told himself he'd seen it all. He had a reputation, tough, no nonsense, and not one for second chances. He believed in his own brand of justice, and in his mind, anyone who didn't fit a place like Greenfield warranted at least a second look. Up ahead, he spotted her, a black woman, mid-40s, fit with a confident stride, jogging at a steady pace. Her earbuds were in, lost in her own world, expensive running shoes pounding the pavement in rhythm. She looked like she belonged, but something about her unsettled Marcus. Maybe it was the fact that she didn't glance his way. Most people at least acknowledged a passing police cruiser. She didn't. Or maybe it was the silver Audi she'd just jogged past, parked in a driveway. Did she come from there? Or was she casing houses? Or maybe it was nothing at all. Still, Marcus pulled over. The tires crunched against the curb as he stepped out, his hand settling on his duty belt. Not reaching for anything, just ensuring its presence was felt. His eyes locked onto the jogger as she slowed, yanking out one earbud. Her breathing was heavy but controlled. She wiped sweat from her brow, barely fazed by his presence. "Something wrong, officer?" she asked, catching her breath. "Where you coming from?" His voice was steady, laced with that quiet authority he perfected over the years. She blinked, glancing up the street before answering. "Home. Just finishing my run." "Where's home?" She tilted her head slightly, her relaxed expression tightening ever so slightly. "Couple blocks down. Got ID on you?" There it was. The moment shifted. Her face hardened just enough to notice. Her relaxed posture straightened. "For what?" Marcus lifted his chin, studying her closely. He didn't like being questioned. Just need to make sure everything checks out. She exhaled sharply, hands on her hips. "You stopped a woman jogging in broad daylight because you think I'm a threat?" He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. She huffed a short laugh, reaching for her phone. "You know what? Let's call someone who actually enforces the law correctly." Marcus stepped forward, not aggressively, deliberately. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ask again. Show me some identification." Her fingers tightened around her phone. He noticed. In his mind, the situation had just escalated. But Marcus didn't realize he was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. The street was eerily quiet, the occasional rustle of leaves, the faint hum of distant traffic. But for Renee Mitchell, the world had narrowed down to the officer standing too close. His stare was heavy, weighted with authority. She knew this routine, had seen this play out before. "I'm not required to carry ID while jogging," she said evenly. Marcus shifted his stance. That's so," Renee replied, voice unwavering. But Marcus didn't hear calm. He heard defiance. He glanced around, mostly empty street, a few houses with blinds drawn. One or two people out front, subtly watching. No one stepping in. "I'm investigating suspicious activity," he said, voice clipped. "What activity?" He hesitated. He hadn't expected to be challenged this far. "You ran past a home with a high-value vehicle in the driveway." "You mean the Audi?" Renee laughed, sharp, humorless. "So now jogging past a car is a crime?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "You're refusing to identify yourself." "I'm refusing to be harassed." That word, harassed, it hit him like a match to gasoline. He took a step closer. "You're resisting my investigation." "I'm resisting nothing. You're abusing your badge, and you know it." Her hand twitched near her phone again. Marcus didn't think, he reacted. He grabbed her wrist, yanking it behind her back. The cold metal of handcuffs glinted in the sun. "What the hell?" Renee shouted, struggling. "You're under arrest for obstruction," Marcus barked, his voice cold and mechanical, like he was reading from a script. The quiet street wasn't quiet anymore. A man on his porch had his phone out, recording. A woman across the street stood frozen. Eyes widened. Whispers swirled. "You're making a mistake." Renee grit through her teeth, trying to keep control. "You should have cooperated," Marcus replied, tightening the cuffs. But Renee's voice remained steady. "You don't even know who I am." And that, he didn't care. But he should have, because his world was about to collapse. The weight of the cuffs bit into Renee's wrists. Marcus kept his grip firm, chest puffed with false authority. But something in the air shifted, a tension thick enough to cut. "Excuse me, officer. What's going on here?" The voice was calm, but it carried weight. A man in his 50s approached, well-dressed, confidence in every step. Marcus barely glanced at him. "Sir, please stand back." The man didn't move. He glanced at Renee, then at the cuffs, then back at Marcus. "I asked what's going on here." "She was uncooperative," Marcus repeated. Renee's voice was sharp. "He stopped me while I was jogging. Asked for ID. I told him I wasn't required to carry one. And now I'm in cuffs." The man's jaw tightened. "You cuffed her for jogging?" "She refused to comply with my investigation," Marcus insisted. The man didn't respond. Instead, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up. Marcus recognized it instantly. Unmarked plates. Someone important. The driver's door opened. Out stepped Captain Henry Lawson, Marcus's commanding officer. And he didn't look happy. The crowd shifted as Lawson walked toward them, his eyes locked on Marcus. "Uncuff her." "Sir." "Now, Officer Reed." Marcus hesitated, but the ice in Lawson's voice left no room for argument. He fumbled with the cuffs, releasing Renee's wrists. Lawson stepped forward, concern etched across his face. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "I'm fine," Renee replied, rubbing her wrists. Marcus stood frozen, confusion swirling in his chest. Lawson turned to him, voice low but sharp. "Do you know who you just put in handcuffs?" Marcus's throat was dry. "Sir," she refused to identify. "That's because she didn't have to." The realization hit hard. Renee's voice cut through the tension. "My name is Deputy Chief Renee Mitchell." Marcus's world crumbled. He stopped breathing. The crowd collectively gasped. "You." "I'm your boss," Renee added coldly. "And you just arrested me on my morning jog." The street fell into stunned silence. Lawson's jaw was locked tight. "Officer Reed, you're relieved of duty. Hand over your badge and gun." The command felt like a death sentence. Marcus's hands shook as he unhooked his badge, placing it into Lawson's palm, followed by his sidearm. The crowd murmured. Phones kept recording. Renee didn't look smug, just deeply, profoundly disappointed. "You think your badge gives you the right to decide who belongs where?" she asked, her voice heavy. "You think jogging while black is a crime?" Marcus had no answer. His mind was a blank slate of shame and regret. Renee stepped closer, her voice low. "You didn't see me. You saw a stereotype, and it cost you your career." She turned away, climbing into her SUV. The crowd parted. The weight of the moment lingered in the air. Marcus stood there, badge gone, career shattered, the realization sinking deeper with every passing second. Some mistakes you can't come back from, and this was one of them.